All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Of course, over on Rumble, because there is a delay. Although the delay is now considerably shorter. They've upgraded something, trust me. I should be live already. No, it still says please stand by, but I do see that live chat is working with Information Warlord, of course, with the inaugural Daily Clank. And well, it's still not showing as live. Okay, now we're live. Of course, with my co-host. This is the real reason everyone tunes into the show. Her sister just came down, so she might launch off the table in an attempt to attack her or something like that. Behold, clanks everywhere. We've got a lot to cover today. Got some interesting news. HR61, is it? Yeah, HR61 House resolution by, who was it who filed this shit? Miss Jackson Lee to the Committee on Judiciary. It's DOA. We'll talk about that. We've got Lori Lightfoot. And then we've got the prediction fulfilled, and several people have pointed it out in the responses to Tim Cast's actual post here on Twitter. Ilhan Omar becoming one of the first Democrats to throw Biden under the bus more officially. This was literally something that I predicted. When I look at the classified document shenanigans, I've had a different take on it than some people. Some in the legacy media are still saying, well, there's a godsend to Trump. How? How do you think that they're going to respond to this? It would be my particular question. But they're not paid to tell people the truth, of course. Sebastian Monroe, a tribute to thy house, Sir Tarl of House Warwick. Thank you very much. Yeah, we've even got our own sword. I should get another one and have them like behind me with a shield or something. Family crest. I should try to get a family crest thing going. I mean, the actual House of Warwick, of course, in England wouldn't apply, so get something from the Queen of England. They've still got a queen, by the way. We're not talking about Meghan and Harry, of course. Sheila Jackson Lee thought an island would tip over if there were too many military on the island. Wasn't there an old thing back, I think it was 100 or so years ago? Didn't they convince them that Manhattan was beginning to sink into the ocean because of the number of big buildings on the tip? And then they had an idea to like blast the island and then turn it around or something. And it was seriously debated at the time. I seem to recall something like that in a book that I read as a kid about strange facts and stuff like that, along with the spontaneous human combustion and shit like that. Pretty good stuff. Should get a book like that now, actually. Clankin' Kitty, says Vectorm12. Anyway, we'll start right off with the news. First and foremost, I am taking a W here. I am taking the win. I was correct. At least some of the Democrats are preparing to attempt to toss Biden under the railroad tracks right now. Representative Ilhan Omar says she is glad a special counsel has been appointed to investigate Biden's classified docs. Of course, it would come from the far left. Of course it would. Here's the thing. Most Democrats do not want Joe Biden to run for re-election. That is disproportionately the far left and the sort of center left, like the independent leaning Democrats. Those two groups fucking hate Biden. His coalition at this point is partisan Democrats and the neoliberal core. That's his coalition. Most Democrats, the majority of them, do not want him seeking re-election. What better opportunity than to throw him under the bus because he did exactly what Trump did while making it clear, of course, it wasn't as bad as what Trump did. And so Trump shouldn't run either, or Trump should be arrested. Or, hey, Joe Biden stood down. Why won't Trump do the same? It kills two birds with one stone. There are multiple ways you can field it, and it sort of depends on what the special counsel actually finds. They're looking into a rather small number of documents, but they are in two different unsecured locations. It is a problem for Joe Biden. I'd be surprised if it doesn't affect his polling, especially among people when asked, hey, do you want Biden to be the 2024 Dem nominee? Well, I think that any reasonable person would say this might be a liability because it takes one of the biggest potential attacks on Trump actually off the table, which is the classified documents at the Mar-a-Lago. You won't be able to talk about that without having a problem where the Republicans or whoever you're discussing throw it right back at you and say, well, Biden did the same thing. So, it's obviously a larger problem. And by the way, those were in unsecure locations, not like the double locked door at the Mar-a-Lago with Secret Service milling about. What'll happen? I don't know. They may impeach Biden over this. The GOP is run by the Republicans. they could certainly use this as an excuse to do so, although there are multiple other things they could impeach him for. He's already broken the law. He's undermined the Constitution numerous times. He's overstepped his authority. You have the Twitter leaks. The Twitter files. You can impeach him for that, for dereliction of protecting the Constitution. The House can technically impeach him for whatever the fuck it wants. Well, shit, he eats too much ice cream, but he's also concerned about climate change. Well, ice cream is made with butter. God damn it, we're impeaching him. You don't actually have to have a reason to hold the impeachment vote. The articles can be whatever the House, which is partisan, wants them to be. But now you see the Democrats doing the predictable. The Democrats that don't really like Joe Biden are prepared to throw him under the bus. If you end up with a coalitional sort of situation where Biden is facing pressure from even a minority of the far left, plus a handful of left independents and all of the partisan GOP, he may end up in a really bad spot where he can't feasibly run again. If that happens, then what occurs is that then you toss him under the bus. So he goes bye-bye. You may remove him from office, get him to resign, or maybe he just says that I'm not seeking re-election. That's impossible. And then you use that as fodder against Donald Trump. Well, Joe Biden's not running again. Donald Trump did the same thing, so it's a big problem. The Republicans haven't learned their lesson. You can almost smell the McConnell unipartyists, by the way, using this as a talking point, just to be clear. That's the next step. Now that the Democrats are beginning to get nervous about Biden leading the charge, Ilhan Omar, predictably. I'm surprised it wasn't AOC, actually, but, runner-up after this. You will see the uniparty Republicans, Paul Ryan firing a 4-shot, I think 2 days ago, actually, on this, attacking Trump basically over the same thing. Well, we can't be the party. This will be Mitch McConnell's statement. We can't be the party of law and order and of decency and the regality of Congress and all this bullshit he doesn't really believe in. If we're going to let Donald get away with the same thing that Joe Biden's guilty of, we're sitting here having a conversation nationally about Joe Biden and the Espionage Act. We should be having the same convo about Trump. That's what they're going to pull. That is almost certain at this point. Long as you get a few more Democrats to throw Trump under the bus, which, it'll probably happen, just to be clear. Ian Jones, any new music coming soon? You have a great voice. Once I have a recording set up that wouldn't suck. I can't really do it here. The Great Scalzini, did you get a chance to watch Razor's Lincoln vid? No, I haven't yet. I did not. I never get notified when he uploads, so I have to check his channel manually every other week or so just to see what the fuck he's uploaded. I want Michael Jackson Rebuttal Part 4. I think those are his best rants overall. Crimson Catnip. Good morning. I hope and pray you and your family are safe and well. Keep being an awesome husband and father. Be safe and be blessed. Love, your cats. Thank you very much. I love the cats too, except when they wake me up at 4 a.m. or they wake the baby up at 7 a.m. instead of waiting. Thankfully, Yana has fallen into a pattern now where somewhere around 8 to 8:30, she goes and takes a shit. And then she very, very loudly and frustratingly paws around in the litter box. For some reason, she finds it fun to paw the sides too. That wakes the baby up. It's almost like an alarm clock. It's more reliable than a phone alarm clock sometimes. Doc Holliday, the Golem of Chicago hunching around the alleys. Yeah. We'll move to the Lightfoot story here because it's also funny. Is this the end of Lori Lightfoot? Chicago's oddball mayor is facing scandal after scandal. I'll answer the question first. Unfortunately, it's not the end of Lori Lightfoot. Chicago is far blue. If the people there really gave a damn about solving some of the problems in Chicago, they wouldn't have reelected her in the first place. The people of Chicago are effectively hostage to a supermajority of far leftoids there that generally either see no problem or they think the problem is being caused by Indiana, just to be clear. You have high crime, you have corruption, you have hypocrisy within the city government, Lightfoot getting her hair did, of course, during the lockdowns, and then making the excuse that she went on TV a lot, so she needed her hair to look good. It never has, but, it had to be trimmed up anyway for some reason. You should just let it grow out wild and woolly because nothing you do is going to make you more aesthetically pleasing, Lori, just to be clear. She has already done so many crazy things. some cases illegal things, she already would have been kicked out if this was going to impact her. Now, the specific scandal, though, is rather dire. Now, specifically, what happened is that Lori Lightfoot decided to send out an email to all of the kids in the public school system of Chicago, trying to get them active, tens of thousands of kids, by the way, to do like political campaigning for the Democratic Party, which is probably illegal and at the very least unconscionable. And to be clear, even some of the liberals are harping about this. They are absolutely happy in every possible gleeful way, shape, and form that the Biden document scandal dropped at the same time that this did. This is a couple of days ago that we found out about this. Now, she's blaming a staffer and saying, well, no, that wasn't authorized. Well, who wrote the email then? Did the staffer take initiative to write it themselves? I hazard a guess, probably not. I think that a draft email that was politically pointed, that was in consideration, was inadvertently sent to the entire school district, along with all the students' emails. Now, Gen Alpha and Zoomers these days, do they even use email other than signing up for some sort of app? Probably not. It's basically the equivalent of snail mail now. We millennials have to get used to the fact that simply utilizing email on a regular basis is sort of a dying thing. It's a huge thing. It's possibly illegal. It could actually lead to a genuine probe, but it's Chicago, so it's not going to come of anything. What'll happen is that this story will peter out because there are bigger things to talk about, and she'll remain in office and probably get reelected as long as she seeks reelection. It would be very, very difficult for her to get fired from her position. It's goddamn Chicago. It's like 80% partisan Democrats, unless she gets primaried from the left, which may not even be possible. By the way, she is black and she's a lesbian, so she does tick the boxes for the wokeness. She can't be primaried out, and she can't get kicked out in a general, so she's there for life, basically. I don't think they have term limits. Uper0987, I'll be having my left leg amputated soon, and my chances of surviving the surgery is not high. I would like to thank you for your hard work and encourage everyone not to give up. Once you give up, you lose automatically. Fight to the end. I think you'll survive, Stick's prediction, and I wish you well. So, yes, if you are a praying person, you can pray for Uper. I can't do that, but I can look into the occult, I suppose. Good luck with that. I wonder. Left leg amputated. Yeah, I think you'll make it, actually. Just giving my opinion. No black pill zone. So, yeah. I'm sorry to hear that you have to go through that, though. At the very least, I guess they give you painkillers these days. Imagine back 100 years ago, they just gave you chloroform and called it a day. Jesus. Keith Sparbaney, thoughts on controversial MLK sculpture in Boston? I made a new tech exclusive on that topic. I can't give most of my thoughts about the MLK statue on a YouTube live stream, to be clear. My basic thought is this. I'm sure you've all seen the story. The viewing angle appears to have been meant to make it look kind of like a heart. It's a sculpture. It's the shoulders and arms of Coretta Scott King and Martin Luther King in their famous embrace after he won the Nobel Peace Prize. The problem is that the angle that a lot of people were viewing it from is Martin Luther King's like back and shoulder, and it makes it look a hell of a lot like Coretta Scott King is carrying a giant poo-poo or possibly a penis in her hands, a giant black slamaconda. This is not going over well with people. It's modern art, although I will say in defense, at least the person carved the fingers and made them realistic. So as far as modern art goes, it's ironically better than most. At least it's not just a pile of plastic cups. That seems to be the average modern art these days. Bara, do you follow Dave Smith? Opinion of his content? Yeah, I've seen some of his content. Pretty good. Yeah, Alexandra Marsh. Insert that's a penis. Yeah, slamaconda specifically, although it can also be interpreted in other ways. It's, again, I get the idea of it. It's the shoulders and arms embracing. I don't know why they didn't at least, just add the heads. Why didn't you? I guess they did. They ran out of budgeting or something for the bronze that they were using. Once the bronze tarnishes, though, and turns a different color, it'll look a little bit less bizarre, I think, because right now it's a certain tone that happens to coincide with slamacondas and poo-poos and stuff like that. It's weird. I don't know. They probably should have had something behind it so that it would make the viewing area obvious. Like put up, a cement, sculpture or something like that. Like a little arch or something like that. That'd make it a little bit more obvious. Next, we've got HR61 to prevent and prosecute white supremacy-inspired hate crime and conspiracy to commit white supremacy-inspired hate crime, and to amend Title 18 U.S. Code to expand the scope of hate crimes. You see one possible hate crime, unfortunately, that's included here. Now, don't get too worried about this. Some people are flipping out. This is coming through a Republican-led House. It's still in committee. This is a proposal. It's unlikely to even come up for a vote. If it does, it fails. If by some miracle it got to the Senate, it would never pass through the filibuster, which you'll notice they're not talking about very much right now. Interesting. I thought all the leftoids told me if Herschel Walker lost, the filibuster would go by the wayside. That's interesting. Why aren't you doing anything about that? You had big balls before talking about how great it would be if people just voted for Warnock and a few of it and Fetterman, but you're not doing anything about it. Could it be because there are too many holdouts that refuse to vote in favor of ending the filibuster? I believe you need to literally supersede the filibuster to get rid of it, actually, which would be interesting. The anti-filibuster vote falls victim to the filibuster. Probably would. This bill effectively would make it illegal for you to give your opinion online and offend anyone. Because if you say anything that would be conceived of as offensive by someone like Sheila Jackson Lee, so a leftoid, you could be held criminally liable if anyone who had seen that post was inspired by it to do any form of a hate crime. Now, the hate crime doesn't actually have a proper definition. It used to be understood that it was like you were attacking someone because of their skin color or something like that. You were discriminating against them in a business, so you refused to hire them explicitly because they were black or white or whatever. Well, not white. That wouldn't be a problem here. This is only about white supremacy. So if a person would engage in this behavior, and let's say they're an online commentator and they're black, and they say, by God, there's some screed about Asians, or the Japanese are taking all of our jobs or something, and that causes someone to attack them, that wouldn't be a problem, apparently, according to Jackson Lee. It's only a problem if the person's white. That's problem number one. Problem number two, content creators would be completely muzzled in what they could say. U.S. content creators anyway. Now, not only would this run afoul of the House, if it leaves committee, they'll vote it down. If it got to the Senate, it'd be voted down. Might not even get signed. Goddamn, even Biden might not sign something so fucking cockamamie, just to be clear. SCOTUS would injunct it. So it's not going to actually happen. This is an example of a throwaway bill that someone who's a leftoid who's going to be running for re-election puts forth to get more brownie points, pardon the pun, with their constituents. It's like the sort of thing that AOC would put forth. But if you look through it, it's only 5 pages long, so it's a lot shorter than a lot of bills that go through Congress. It's not going to happen, which is the good thing, but it should never even be filed in the first place. The fact that you'd have a member of Congress, even for grandstanding purposes, putting forth something so blatantly in opposition to the First Amendment and arguably the right to privacy, it should never be happening in the first place. Yeah, some people are saying that from the air, the Martin Luther King statue looks weird. Some people said it looked like a rectum from the air. I haven't seen an aerial shot of it. I mean, didn't they spend $10 million on it? And people are comparing it to a poop. Jesus. Next news story. Inflation is cooling, but grocery bills will likely get more expensive this year. Actually, inflation is not really cooling. This is actually only half true. Inflation is still roughly linear. It's cooling in the sense of dropping by a few tenths of a point. Because inflation is calculated year over year instead of month over month, the sudden drop in inflation is not actually a drop because over that same month-to-month period in the prior year, it was rising. So yes, if you have the larger number, if it were still rising or even linear, it would be a compounding effect. It would be even more drastic and dire. Otherwise, if inflation is just linear, so it's not getting higher or lower, which is a better possibility than it rising at least, you're going to have the number month over month. It has to drop again because it compounds the prior year's inflation. I would note that core inflation right now is still well in the double-digit range. So we're talking about the core inflation as opposed to the parsed off number that has been used since the 1980s. What happened is that after the 1970s super recession with stagflation, et cetera, under Jimmy Carter, continuing for the first year of Ronald Reagan, basically, they changed the methodology for reporting on inflation to be what they speculated, and they're not entirely wrong, I suppose, even if it's technically propagandistic in nature. What they speculated is that if they made the number look smaller, that it would affect consumer and business confidence. So people wouldn't notice it quite as much. Even if they're going to the store and buying something and they get sticker shock, at the very least, you're not talking about 14% inflation, 14 points of inflation. You're only talking about 7 or 8. So it sounds better on paper. This was mind games effectively being played on the public, courtesy of the Reagan administration, by the way. Just to be clear, core inflation is still massively high. Part of that is fuel. Gas prices have come down, so have diesel, more belatedly. But it is still higher than when Biden took office. It's still historically high. And that impacts the movement of every good and the cost of every service. Everything is impacted by fuel prices and electricity prices. Every aspect of production effectively is affected by those, unless you go to some primitive community like the Amish or something. Their price of their quilts is probably not particularly changed. They're still spinning their own wool manually. They're still making their own dye. They're still doing all the handiwork. So that quilt probably hasn't risen as much in price. Plus, they grow a lot of their own food anyway. Anywhere else, though, if you don't happen to be Amish, and I doubt many Amish people watch my channel, maybe it's Rumspringa for some college-age Amish kid. Hey, out there, you might want to just fucking go back to the farm. Just to be clear, the world out here is going crazy. Just go and milk more cows. You'll probably have a better time of it. You won't have to deal with Beijing Biden as much. The Amish probably have it right. By the way, fastest breeding group in the world, I think, actually. The future is Amish. You could do worse. But the core prices are still double-digit high. I think I said it was like 12.5% or something like that. So it's not quite at peak. That's good. The good news is it's not at its peak. The bad news is it hasn't actually petered down very far. Clankathon. How many people are watching right now, actually? Yeah, almost 4,000 cross-platform. Still lower, of course. I took a few days off for the last couple of weeks and people got goofy with the schedule. I've got to try to stream every weekday. I realize that's my fault. Next news story, how Ukraine became a laboratory for Western weapons and battlefield innovation. They are actually attempting to cast off the war in Ukraine as a great thing. I mean, they're not wrong in their basic summation. It does allow you to test Western weapons and see how they fare against some adversary. This was how they analyzed aspects of Iraq and Afghanistan too for a while. Vietnam. What'll happen if we give a bunch of dudes that are 19, 20, 21 years old a shit ton of pills and then put them out in the jungle with basically nothing but their lieutenant telling them what to do? What will happen? Oh, My Lai Massacre. Whoops. We do this all the time. Experimentation on the troops, on foreign countries, on how your tanks and shit operate is constant and ongoing. It makes more sense to have it in a less predictable live fire scenario than it does to do it on a testing range where things are planned out in advance. That way you can adapt more quickly. War is a driver of technology. I hate to point out the one thing that the Warhawks are right about. It can drive everything from communication and transportation to medicine, ballistics, literally everything under the sun. That being said, it's almost being adulated for that purpose by elements of the legacy media. They appear to not give a goddamn in this particular article, for example. What site's this from? This is CNN Politics, so why am I not surprised? CNN Politics acting as though this is some sort of like great opportunity for the West. While it is an opportunity to test things, like shouldn't you be doing what the journalists, ostensibly should do and pushing for diplomacy and saying, hey, it's sad because a bunch of people are dying here and we're profiteering off of it. Maybe we should reconsider whether this is an ethical decision. But they're not going to be doing that, of course. I have an Amish bedpan made out of layers of wool and cotton. Took about a month to get, but was worth it. Oh, bed pad. I thought you said bedpan, and I was wondering why it was made out of wool and cotton. It's like, are you trying to soak up the piss in order to, I don't know, turn it into fertilizer or something? Jesus Christ. Last fall, as Ukraine won back large swaths of territory in a series of counterattacks, it pounded Russian forces with American-made artillery and rockets. Guiding some of that artillery was a homemade targeting system that Ukraine developed on the battlefield. There's your additional innovation. A piece of Ukrainian-made software has turned readily available tablet computers and smartphones into sophisticated targeting tools that are now used widely across the Ukrainian military. That's great until somebody grabs one of those phones, reverse engineers it, figures out exactly how it works and how it can be fucked with. But yeah, oh shit, you know, the Russians just fucked with our artillery strike and we accidentally killed ourselves. Whoops. The result is a mobile app that feeds satellite and other intelligence images to real-life targeting algorithm that helps units near the front direct fire onto specific targets. And because it's an app, not a piece of hardware, it's easy to quickly update and upgrade. Or hack, by the way, and available to a wide range of personnel. U.S. familiar with the tool say it has been highly effective at directing Ukrainian artillery fire onto Russian targets. Yeah, until some American psychopath, aka member of the government, says, haha, it'll be a Bush family member probably. Hey, that elementary school over there, it'd be a shame if I accidentally targeted that instead. Opinionated Junkie, did you see the Honest Abe video Razor did? No, somebody asked that at the beginning of the stream too. I have not gotten a chance to see it yet. I'll have to put that on the nightly viewing list. Viridian G, you go, bruh. Hi, from South Korea. Haha. Wish I had some kimchi right now. Actually, come to think of it, I might have a thing of kimchi. It's pretty good, nice and spicy. Although apparently, and I did not initially know this, the addition of chili to kimchi to make it spicy was latter day. Pre-colonially, like before Western influence in the general area, it was more pickly. I'm wondering if I could get like the original, honest to goodness, like buried in a goddamn clay jar in the ground and fermented for months kimchi without the chili. Although it's pretty good spicy too. Definitely warm you up on a cold winter day. Next news story, don't say latinx in Arkansas. I know it's pronounced Arkansas, but Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is miraculously still politically relevant, and other Republicans hope this will score them political points, but most Latinos will snicker at such stunts. That's interesting because you use the term Latinos in the tagline under your article. Just to be clear. I wonder why. And this is by Julio Ricardo Varela, MSNBC opinion columnist, and of course, therefore, self-proclaimedly speaks for all Latino and Latina individuals in the United States, just to be clear. Let me, oh, somebody's saying Rumble is down. Is that the case? Or is it on your end? No, I'm still seeing myself there. There's 1,400 people watching. It must be on your end. Try refreshing the browser. I don't know what browser you're using. Maybe try a new one. I use Opera myself whenever possible. Unfortunately, to have other people on a StreamYard call and coordinate everything to make sure that I can share things out, sometimes I have to use Chrome. And I fucking hate Chrome. I don't like using it. It's primitive. Opera is much better. But yeah, Latinx is, there's a debate over it, according to this article. Well, the evil far right is trying to stop you from saying Latinx. Now, of course, that has to do with government paperwork. The idea is that adding an X to the end of it is meaningless. You're effectively, it's just a combination of Latino, Latina. Well, then just use one term or the other. Default to Latinos if it's plural and represents both, just like saying you guys would be a plurality in colloquial usage in the English language. There's no need for Latinx. It doesn't make any, there's no reason to use it. They're trying to do this with folks as well. Full X. Or however the fuck you'd pronounce it, and it's basically it's word games, it's newspeak, it's the idea is to create something new and novel that doesn't really need to be used. And this article goes into saying, well, Latinos that are older prefer Latino or Latino, the younger ones like Latinx. I haven't seen any polling on that. It's MSNBC trying to score points with a group that doesn't even watch MSNBC. How many goddamn Zoomers do you think watch any goddamn cable news program? There was an analysis some time ago of exterior links and offsite traffic just routed via Twitter links. And it was funny because BitChute was #1 on that, despite the fact that BitChute links are, there's a warning page that you have to click through. That's really funny to me. Rumble was up there as well. Legacy media, almost none of them crack 4% with regards to the share. New tech sites, some of them near double digits. So just to be clear, Zoomers and even many millennials are not reading MSNBC articles. I'm the odd man out. I have to pay attention to legacy media as part of my job. I've got the ignominious position where I actually have to read this fucking shit. Leo C, I'm Cuban and my family all laugh at the X. Yeah, and it's like it's never used by people who actually self-identify like they're Hispanic or something. It's always used by white college kids or people that work for MSNBC. So, I mean, banning the usage within government paperwork doesn't really matter that much either. And there's nothing that the government can do to ban it in proper usage in civilian circles. But to see people that are actually getting upset over it and pretending that there's some sort of cultural debate over whether to use a term that literally I've never heard used in private conversation anywhere. I've literally never seen it anywhere. The only time I see it is in news articles or on like a Tumblr page or something. The idea that there's any cultural debate to be had about that is ludicrous. Has anyone here actually in conversation in person or online with someone who's not completely goddamn batshit, like, pink hair and on Tumblr habitually, have you ever heard Latinx used as a term? Because I haven't. And, even interacting with the leftoids, I generally don't see that. The Copper Owl, I'm Latino and fuck Latinx. It's a slur. Yeah, kind of. I guess men and women are exactly the same as the basic premise. Well, then we've solved the problem of misogyny. There's no such thing as men, so. Shaqui Dogemeyer, are Corvettes electric vehicles? Why is our bigoted climate change denying president owning these evil things? Yes, I do find that funny. How many miles per gallon does his old sports car get? Rob S says clank. Yeah, I'm seeing basically nobody here has ever even encountered Latinx in usage. I'm not surprised. A lot of that shit, I will make a criticism, by the way, of more right-wing or right-leaning or traditionalistic content creators too here, to be clear. A lot of them report on stuff like that as though it's widespread. I mean, they're doing it to say, well, the cringe left or something. Really, a handful of ivory tower pink-haired people and lunatics, at Harvard and MSNBC, that's not really a cultural movement. It's an attempt to astroturf one, but it's one that's so cringy. I mean, it's been a while and it hasn't really caught on. It doesn't seem to have seeped down into normal conversation. And I'm not seeing a single person here saying that anyone ever used the term to them. Never seen it in literature, except for some critical race theory shit that I had to go through. Other than that, it's nowhere. It doesn't exist. Are they going to do like Caucasian X or something like that? Or, I guess folks is a stand-in for that. We got to erase the whiteness, male and female. Serial liar George Santos is the politician Americans deserve by Moira Donegan over at The Guardian. I happen to agree with this. By the way, if among partisan Republicans, the response to what George Santos did is, well, politicians lie. I agree with you, but I draw a different conclusion. We need to hold their toes more to the fire and actually hold them accountable for when they do this. To be clear, though, George Santos appears to have lied about virtually every goddamn aspect of his life for years and years leading up to his run for office. If there's one person that actually deserves to be legit investigated for electoral fraud at this point, it's in his filings to run for office. He's used weird fake names on multiple occasions, including in public, by the way, which is really funny. If you're going to run for office, do you really want that material out there? He lied about his employment history, his businesses, his value, the religion, ethnicity. Is there something that he hasn't? I guess he's never claimed to be female, I suppose. Although if he did that, they wouldn't be able to nail him on it because the left thinks that's fine. There's basically nothing he hasn't lied about. It is, to be clear, on an order of magnitude greater than even someone like Biden or Elizabeth Warren. The cavalcade of lies that George Santos has peddled over the years dwarfs, I think, anything else that I've ever seen within U.S. politics. Is there anyone else, maybe in the carpetbagging era, like we're talking post-Civil War, There were probably people who gave fucking false names and shit. And then you find out that Ebenezer Zephyr-Weissen, who was the Secretary of Defense or something, or the mayor of some town, was actually, you know, a chicken in dude's getup or something. You'd find out about that sort of thing in history, certainly. Other than maybe the carpetbagging era, I don't know that anyone else has lied so consistently. I think he should resign. I realize that puts the Republicans in a tricky spot, but you're not going to be able to get away with the defense of, well, they do it too. If this was a Democrat, you could, and you could circle wagons and have like an Al Franken moment, you know, prior to Gillibrand deciding to break that ice. But you're not. You're Republicans. You're not going to be able to get away with it because it's going to continue to be front page news. Again, yes, Warren lied about her ethnicity to get into a good college and for her career furtherance. Biden lied about his student record repeatedly. He lies about various things on a constant basis. In some cases, you can't corroborate the lie, but you know that it is one. With Santos, though, we're talking about virtually everything, virtually all of the time, and we're able to corroborate most of that material. He should probably resign. Again, I realize there's a double standard, and I realize that politicians do lie constantly. Now is the time to promote going after that and doing something about it, as opposed to being lackadaisical, going back to partisan politics and just saying, well, George, it doesn't matter if he lied. It doesn't affect his capabilities of doing things. Of course it does. Of course, he can't get reelected probably. Unless his opponent is batshit crazy. He's on the chopping block next election. So what's the fucking point? Have him resign. Someone else fills the role so that they can have a technically incumbent experience for the next election. Fill him in his empty slot in with a different Republican. Having resigned, I think he gets his pension anyway. Then he can lie about that. BW, this leftoid nightmare is never going to end, is it? There will always be woke tards out there. Yes, they have always existed. The Copper Owl, HR called me X, refused to change when every Latino said it was a slur. HR lady said it's to be inclusive for non-Latinos. Where do you host your book blog? Tarl Warwick Books at WordPress or Blogspot. I will, by the way, literary update. I've formatted 10 new works. I've already done that for the subsequent years' editing projects. I've decided to slow it down but not stop it, basically. I've created an alphabetical list, and what I want to do is take all the previous edited works and organize them and have a new Blogspot, WordPress, and a Substack. Just one post. It's just there to host the links. So they'll be alphabetized and they'll be properly organized. It's much easier for me to do that, sort of fix it and forget it, as opposed to trying to re-edit all of the shit on the two blogs that I already have. I don't know that it's physically possible because it's been so long since I created the old categories that used to be more pertinent that everything's all fucked up. And also, if I expand the blog, like on the main page too much, it's not going to be phone friendly. So it makes more sense to just make new blogs for that material. So yes, the Tarl Warwick Books blog, either at WordPress or at Blogspot. Eric writes, have any fun Dutch phrases yet? If not, I'll gladly settle for a simulated call, a hypothetical curbside order for groceries over the phone. I haven't heard a Native American English Dutch accent yet. Appreciate it. Take care. A lot of the phrases are vulgarities. I don't feel confident enough in my Dutch to speak it much. Like I know a lot of terminology, like, you know, vlees is meat, de slager is, or slager, actually. It's harder to pronounce that, like GH, like that. The slager, that's where you get the meat from. It's the butcher, literally. The groenteman, which is sort of the vegetable vendor. Some of them are archaic, like antiquated. Varken is pork, grund is beef, kip is chicken, vis is fish, zalm and is salmon, etc., etc. I know a lot of the grammar, especially anything food related, because I'm the one that does the shopping generally. I am very, very low end when it comes to any form of fluency in Dutch. I can read it fairly well. It's easy for me to read it because I can take my time. Speaking it, and especially understanding Dutch speakers speaking it, is very difficult for me. I'm much better in the literary sense as opposed to the verbal sense, which makes sense considering my form of employ. Chuck Flea, how to survive in California under Gavin. It's easy. Leave California. Ozzy's Robots. Miss Universe was better when Trump owned it. Yeah, the owner of Miss Universe, whose name I can't really pronounce, happens to be transgendered and from Thailand. Probably the least hostile place in the world to be, by the way, transgendered. There's a bit of a connection there. Thailand or the Philippines, I suppose. Anyway, he went on a rant the other night talking about how a trans woman now owned Miss Universe and it would be a symbol of feminism for all women in the world. I'm thinking to myself, it's kind of ironic and it doesn't really come off right. And a lot of people focused in on that, how funny it was. So somebody who was born biologically male, has a Y chromosome, is now again speaking for women. And I talked about that this morning too on my New Tech exclusive of the day, actually, the funniness of the Miss Universe pageant being owned by someone who has a Y chromosome. I was talking about that and pointing out that that sort of thing happens a lot in women's fashion as well, actually. A lot of the times the person who's taking some half emaciated woman, forcing her into 6-inch heels, putting garbage bags on her, and then having her walk across the catwalk for a bunch of other people to oogle, typically are men. Men are the ones predominantly that do those designs and own those shows. Bara, going to order Morbid Stories and other books. Morbid Stories was very fun to write. I'm going to be doing another edition of it. I've got some more inclusions to make, and also I use a different format now than I used to use. Matt Murdoch, are you my teacher? You have the same name as him. Your teacher's name is Tarl? Interesting. Or Warwick? Do you mean surname? There are only a few dozen Tarls in the world, and I'm the only Tarl Warwick that's ever lived, to be clear, so. Which I like. Having a unique name has its perks. Although when your first initial is T and your second initial is W, seating arrangements when they're alphabetical, which really shouldn't be a thing, by the way, in schools, they're doing roll call, you're always at the end. So that can be, kind of weird. Oh, Sticks. Your teacher's name is Sticks. Interesting. So yeah, George Santos is still completely nuts. Oh, it looks like they've changed. Sorry to everyone who has donated on Rumble, but it looks like they've changed it. Oh, no. It went sorry, chat went to the top. I didn't see all of your super chats there. Crystal Blue, where does the WEF currently at Davos is discussing cyber attacks? Reminiscent of pandemics 2 months before CV struck. Event 201. Have you heard anything? I haven't heard of it, but it's not a big surprise to me. Yeah, they'll probably be trying to do cyber attacks and stuff to promote more fucking authoritarianism. They don't care how many people suffer or die as long as they have more. That is their god is money. Moonlight Girl, at least he didn't marry his sister to get her into the country. Yeah, there's a good point. Captain Cannabis on YouTube. Here's to the Diaper and Caffeine Fund. Shout out to Mayo Cat. Excellent. Pepe Payne over on Rumble. Between Santos and Fetterman, it just proves that anyone can get elected. So what are our excuses for not getting involved in changing the system we bitch about? Serious question. I've been asking that question for years. Knock on doors. Do more than vote. It's good to vote and be civically active. If more people do that, it's impossible to overcome the wishes of the masses because there's too many of them. Uncle Gib, who sent $100 on Rumble. Thank you. Thank you for all of the research you do and doing the work to put out videos daily. Yeah, I've got to get a little bit more work ethic, actually, because I keep skipping live streams and stuff. Sometimes it's weather related. Like today, the weather's decent, I would say. It's not freezing. It's raining, but it's not pouring. But if it's really inclement, then, Liz can't take the baby out for a walk for me to do a live stream. She would take her upstairs. The problem is that then the baby can be fussy. So either the weather has to line up or the baby has to be having a calm day if I'm going to be doing a live stream. In the future, I will have an office with soundproofing and probably a grounded mic, etc., so that it'll be higher quality. Harun Musa, Biden's going to jail. No, Biden's not going to go to jail, unfortunately. He's more likely to croak in office than to ever see the inside of a cell. I realize that it is apples to oranges. He kept materials that were classified in unsecured locations, having no methodology by which he would have properly declassified them. Trump deviates from this. He did have that ability. The materials were well stored and secure. And he was openly working with the government at that time. He didn't pretend he didn't know the documents were there. That being said, despite Biden's situation technically being worse, they're not going to put him in jail. The special counsel may or may not be instructed by Garland to throw him under the bus. That's what we're waiting for. By the way, please send no more super chats because I have to do other things as well. Lance Corporal Veteran, best being later in roll call. You're never late. Opinionated junkie, celebrities should run for office. Yeah, some of them. It depends on the particular celebrity. Some of them are morons, but then some of them are actually, surprisingly, it'd be funny if Johnny Depp got into office. He'd have a coalition. Aussie's Robots. Near Mayor Adams said no room for New York for migrants. Lol. Oh, my Mayor Adams said no room in New York for migrants. Yeah, he has. He's complained. They're supposed to stay to home. They're supposed to stay in their part of the country. Oh, we want them. We definitely want them to come in. We openly oppose any real, attempt at border policy, a wall or whatever, monitoring more ICE agents. We oppose all that, but as long as they stay out of our community, they're not allowed in Martha's Vineyard. You've noticed. They're not allowed. They're not allowed in Chicago. All the woke people there, they should be crucifying Lori Lightfoot. Don't you want more diversity? After all, it's doing such a good job for Chicago already now, isn't it? Did a great job in Detroit. Jesus Christ, you should double down. So many empty houses in Detroit, you could probably take half of the illegals in the country and just put them there. Why the fuck not? Not doing anything that's not already being done anyway. Anyway, I think I'm going to go offline here. Almost 5,500 at peak there. I would stay longer, but I ran out of news stories, and I do have a few things that I have to do today, including probably cooking later. I don't know, we'll order out or something like that. I like getting sushi from a place called Blue Sakura that's over here in Enschede. Really good sushi. If you ever visit Enschede, I would recommend them, and also Humphreys. Humphreys is a really great restaurant. It's sort of soup and sandwich style. They've got all sorts of great shit. Tell them Styx Hexenhammer sent you, and they'll say, what? Who's that? That's about all. Peace out.